Since 2003, on a terrace along Rivière aux Araignées, point fragments with typical channel flakes of fluted points are uncovered.
In square H72, less than 10 centimeters from the surface, fluted on both sides. This is music to my ears.
These discoveries are landmarks of Quebec archaeology by confirming the presence of human groups more than 12,000 years ago in the Lac Megantic region. Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika became the oldest archaeological site in Quebec and the first to have fluted points. A unique cultural marker allowing the dating of their arrival and shedding light on their history. 11 consecutive years of excavation brought their share of fascinating discoveries, while arousing more questions than answers. Some answers regard the selection of the Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika site. The environmental conditions characterized by the tundra and the presence of caribous, as well as the lithic sources chipped by the first Meganticois.
You have just found a channel flake.
Because of Sylvain's great skill of observation.
So, what do you think, Claude?
It's true.
Change of plan.
So Emily, last quadrant to finish your level?
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. Charles is currently digging the third quadrant of case 71.
Because you will have to do some recording. I would like that you all have the same north.
So you found a second rock? It is a work of patience to scrape the soil.
Claude has noticed it.
3 flakes. Still rhyolite? You are the only ones digging this square meter, so your responsibility is to make the best possible recording.
Summer 2001, Norman Clermont is directing the first field school. He named the region the Meganticois. Exploratory excavations were carried out at 3 promising sites located along the Lac des Joncs. Summer 2002, Claude Chapdelaine is the new director, and 12 known sites are evaluated in order to verify their potential for an excavation. On Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika, the team excavates 26 test pits, and satisfying results were sufficient to return to the site in 2003. Summer 2003, the Cliche-Rancourt archaeological site makes history. The first 2 fluted points are discovered on August 4th and 8th, as well as a channel flake that mends with the first point. Other tools are part of the early Paleoindian assemblage. Summer 2004, it is the confirmation with 4 new fluted points. The 7th is unearthed in 2006, and the 8th in 2008. The first field seasons, including 2005, were concentrated on areas number 1 and number 2. Area number 3 was the subject of sustained attention from 2006 to 2008, and area number 4 was favored in 2009. That same year, area number 5 was discovered, and excavations were carried out from 2010 to 2012. 11 years later, a last field season is undertaken at several areas to complete the information and hoping to find new Paleo-Indian artifacts.
This small piece of chipped stone with a channel flake and a second one here. This piece, with all the other evidence discovered at that time, allowed me to establish with the most convincing way that we had just found the first site with fluted points in Quebec. A fluted point like this one is incomplete. The tip is missing. It is a hunting weapon. The channel flake was probably done to facilitate the hafting on a javelin that was thrown by hands or maybe by a spear thrower. It was used to attack an animal. it is possible to estimate the age of the points and the occupation of the site by comparing our fluted points with similar points found elsewhere in the Great American Northeast. We have some carbon-14 dates on a few sites.
The 9 fluted points from Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika provide us with new insights, although they are all fragmented. As an example, 2 base fragments show an advanced finished state. They were probably broken during the hunt and brought back to the site. 2 points were never finished. The first one is fluted on a single side, while the other is fluted on both sides. The base fragments were broken on the site at a late stage of finishing, a technical mistake causing them to be abandoned. The other points are represented by the tip, and only one was fluted on both sides. The fluted point is exclusive to the early Paleoindian. It is also a cultural and chronological marker. This technical movement is linked to the finishing stage of the tool, and it was invented 13,500 years ago in western United States. This type of point named Clovis has undergone an evolution in its shape and length of the channel flake. At Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika, the most finished fluted point is related to an intermediary phase dated between 12,400 and 12,000 years ago. This point, with the channel flake covering more than half its length, has also a concave base with 2 small ears. 4 distal ends, fragments or tips, confirm the tendency to produce channel flakes, covering a large portion of the blade. The 9 fluted points at Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika constitute a coherent assemblage, confirming its identification to the oldest chapter of human population in the eastern townships and of Quebec. The channel flake is also very useful to identify a cultural and chronological affiliation to a site. It is thus worth mentioning that a large quantity of channel flakes was identified at Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika, which is more than the number of points. Considering the success rate of flint craftsmen, it is suggested that at least 20 points were finished on the site and used and abandoned elsewhere. The settlers were well equipped with a variety of tools adapted to fulfill their needs. Unfortunately, the soil acidity has not permitted the conservation of organic tools, only chipped stone tools. These lithic tools are discarded after use, and they serve to scrape, to saw, and to cut or slice. 12,000 years ago, tundra had disappeared south of Border Mountains, while there was still a tundra in the Meganticois region, where it was a good place to hunt caribou. Humans follow the migratory caribou north during summer to exploit tundra resources. At this time of the year, caribou hunting was optimal to stock up food and skins in preparation for winter. To support themselves, they walk hundreds of kilometers to exploit the Munsungun Red Chert Quarry in Maine, directly at the source. The presence of mountain passes facilitates the transition from the Kennebec River Basin to the Chaudière River Basin. Facing the rapids, along the Rivière aux Araignées, the site is strategically positioned. The flat, well-drained terrace is a great place to camp. In addition, the place overlooks the river by a dozen meters, offering a panoramic view of the surroundings with a treeless landscape. The small size of the 5 occupied areas suggests the presence of small hunting groups of about 10 to 15 individuals. These nomadic groups carry wooden poles and caribou pelts. The toolbox is well stocked, and the flint knappers have left behind 13,000 flakes and more than 400 tools. These figures indicate both a certain intensity of knapping activities on the site, as well as a length of occupation that could extend over several days or even weeks. The origin of the first Meganticois settlers can be traced back to a migration from Western America that began more than 13,000 years ago. These pioneers of the Clovis tradition chipped fluted points, and they maintained this technological tradition as far as eastern North America. The first occupants had their winter quarters in the forests of the southern portion of the states of Maine and New Hampshire. At that distant time, the canoe did not yet exist. They are great walkers. The uniqueness of the site also lies in the fact that it was occupied at least 5 times in the early Paleo-Indian. Various activities are carried out in which the 5 areas of the site are associated. Hunting characterizes area number 1. Area number 2 is the result of a brief stop. The northwestern part of area number 3, a chipping workshop with 7,000 red chert flakes. Its southeastern part has a quantity of side scrapers and end scrapers, which suggests a space used for the treatment of hides after hunting. Area number 5, which may have been the last occupation of the site in the early Paleo-Indian, corresponds to a chipping workshop dominated by a variety of rhyolite of unknown source. In the late Paleo-Indian, the site continued to attract a human presence. Areas number 1 and number 2 are occupied by groups that nap points and bifaces from another material, the rhyolite of Mount Kineo in Maine. These points can date back to 10,500 years ago. Much later, between 8,000 and 4,000 years ago, small groups from the Archaic period occupied area number 4 and the northeastern part of area number 5. They then chipped their tools from 2 local materials, a quartz and a red mudstone, as well as from a gray rhyolite of unknown source. These many visits will span more than 8,000 years. The presence of early Paleo-Indian groups at the Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika archaeological site is the oldest occupation of Quebec territory to date. This statement is based on the discovery of 9 fluted points. The site was thoroughly excavated, and the analysis benefited from a multidisciplinary approach. This oldest chapter in the human adventure in Quebec exposes the ability of human groups to adapt to the cold and their exceptional mobility, where the hundreds of kilometers to be covered are part of daily life. Jean Cliche and Catherine Rancourt greatly facilitated the research, and their contribution to the archaeology of the Meganticois is important. Abenaki anthropologist Nicole Obomsawin explains that Mamsalhabika, which means spider, was chosen because of the river and lake aux Araignées.
Mamsalhabika, for the location that was probably attended by our ancestors.
The Cliche-Rancourt-Mamsalhabika archaeological site must be protected. The dissemination of information now consists of guided tours of the main areas of the site. A walk in the oldest history in Quebec is paired with the exhibition Clovis, Caribou Hunters. Archaeology in the Meganticois is alive and well.
The discovery of the 9th fluted point at Cliche-Rancourt in September 2023 is confirming again its importance. The only site in Quebec with fluted points.
What makes a region stand out is that it has something unique to tell.
Pyramids of Egypt date back 5,000 or 6,000 years, while here it is 12,000 years.
We have just found a channel flake.
For us to be here on the only site in Quebec dating to the early Paleo-Indian.
This is really an exceptional discovery.
It is a privilege.
The oldest archaeological site,
We want to attract here as much people as possible to learn more about Quebec archaeology.
which testified of the first human presence in Quebec.
This fluted point certainly tells more to the archaeologists. It is typical of the early Paleo-Indian, which dates back the human occupation in the Meganticois territory to more than 12,000 years ago.
You tell me, Claude, that some 12,500 years ago, someone made this point,
We find thousands of years after this object that was certainly precious and useful.
and now I have it in my hands. Really unbelievable.
If it was not for Claude, we would not be here.
At the Cliche-Rancourt site, a total of 9 fluted points testify for its antiquity.
You can imagine that part of the human energy was invested into that piece. It is like a work of art.
And we are fortunate to shed light upon it.